Today's show is brought to you by TestCube. Testing applications in Kubernetes doesn't have to be complicated. TestCube is your go-to platform for cloud-native continuous testing. With TestCube, you can orchestrate, scale, and automate tests effortlessly right within Kubernetes, catching issues early and deploying with confidence. Try it out today and see why engineering teams trust TestCube to keep their testing simple and scalable. Your test, your tools, your infrastructure, finally together. Check it out at testcube.io/cloudcast. Today's show is sponsored by Doit. Cloud spend is just the surface. What really matters is how it drives performance, reliability, and speed to market. Doit Cloud Intelligence aligns every dollar to the intent of the workloads. Doit is trusted by companies like Fiverr, HackerRank, Current, and Superbet. Doit helps teams go beyond dashboards, surfacing hidden inefficiencies, resolving incidents faster, and aligning cloud operations with business priorities. One platform, unified signals, better outcomes across engineering and finance. Visit doit.com, that's DOIT.com, to unlock intent-aware FinOps at scale. Doit Cloud Intelligence.
Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
And we're back for another rousing episode of everybody's favorite Cloud and AI monthly show, Cloud News of the Month, Cloud and AI News of the Month. Brandon, Aaron, welcome back, guys. How have we been?
We've been fantastic. Football season is upon us, so less podcasting, more watching football.
There you go. We actually have games. We made it.
Right.
We finally made it. Yeah, no, that's exciting. Aaron, your team, well, your sort of team lost last night. Your real team plays tomorrow, so you're in between things right now.
That's right. Yeah, it was an interesting loss last night for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah.
How was the tailgate? That's what everybody wants to know. How was the tailgate?
Oh, so it was at NC State. So our tailgate, it's not till next weekend. Okay. It's our first tailgate at ECU. So
come on, you got to go invade the Wolfpack and just bring your tailgate to them. No. If you don't win on the field, win in the parking lot. That's what I say.
Never lose the party.
Well, yeah. In true sense of all of that, though, I did see on the news today there was, I don't know if you saw it, Brian, but there was apparently a huge fight at about 1:30 in the morning on the NC State campus. A bunch of ECU, folks
hooligans.
Got probably a little intoxicated and started some shit. So
can't imagine that.
Yeah.
Alcohol, college kids, football. I mean, who would have seen such a thing coming?
Who would have imagined?
So the season is open.
Yeah, well, we have a lot to get to. I'll just throw this out there. It feels like every single one of these topics has some political spin in it, one way or the other. So we'll have to deal with that a little bit. But I want to start with I have a podcast I listen to. It's called The Trap Draw. It has nothing to do with technology. It's about other weirdo stuff. But they have a sponsor called ServPro, and their thing is, they basically come in when you have like a flood in your house, and they have a whole section that's called like the mea culpa section. Like, we made mistakes. Let's clean up the mistakes. I want to start with, I may have mischaracterized the brilliance of Pat Gelsinger's retirement strategy of taking over the CEO job at Intel and fleecing them for $140 million before, handing it back off and whatever. I mean, what in the world is going on with Intel? They just gave up like 10% of their company and essentially became socialized. I can't figure. I thought before they were getting even more money, and now they're taking less money and having to give up their company. As we talked about, like Pat didn't do anything. He just sort of laid out a maybe, coulda, shoulda, woulda. But taking them for as much money as he did. Congratulations! I've changed my mind on whether he should be in the Hall of Fame. I think he should be back in the Hall of Fame, but only for the Intel piece because, and I'm starting this whole thing off with Pat Gelsinger stuff. I hadn't realized Broadcom announced their earnings. This was back in June. I don't even think we covered it. VMware earnings are now up double since they acquired the company. And Pat was the last GM, or he was the last president of VMware before they got taken over. So he's back in the not Hall of Fame, but he is in the Hall of Fame for fleecing Intel for $140 million. Congratulations. That's the way I'm starting this month's show. Thought.
That's fantastic. Well, I left him in a difficult situation. I mean, I guess it's almost as if he sold like convertible debt, right? So they took on that big $10 billion investment, and I guess the government has decided to convert that to like a 10% stake in the company. I don't know. Yeah. I guess it's kind of Ben Thompson's been covering this pretty extensively, and I've kind of come to like, I think he summarized this pretty well. It's like, well, if the U.S. wants to have chip manufacturing, Intel is really our only choice.
Yeah.
And if we want that, then basically we're going to have to pay for it because no one's going to use it on their own. They've all already gone to TSMC. So it is very much like there really aren't any good options, I guess. You can either not have chip manufacturing or the U.S. can subsidize and own it. Seem to be the only choices. I don't know. Aaron, what was your take?
Well, along those lines, though, I guess I'm kind of like, well, even if you have Intel, do you really have chip manufacturing? Because to your point, I mean, like, I don't know. It just seems like a...
Yeah, but it's sort of like a chip falls on
it's a deep hole.
Yeah, but chip
hole.
Falls in the woods and nobody hears it. Is it really a chip? Has it actually been made? So.
Well, maybe the simplest way to I guess I think of it this way. It's sort of like if the United States wants to have chip manufacturing because it's a national security thing, they should probably just walk in like a private equity firm and be like, okay, we're going to take the x86 business. We're going to spin that off, right? That can go off and probably be a pretty good business on its own. And the U.S. is basically owns a foundry, right? And the U.S. can start to, incentivize or, depending on how you want to think of it, to your socialism statement, I don't know, can either incentivize or tell people like certain chips have to be built here because they are of national security importance. Because I do think you're right. I mean, I think leaving it feels like if you're working at Intel right now, it's got to be pretty low morale, right? You're kind of just getting beaten up from every side. CEOs are laying people off constantly. You have these constant strategies. The government's involved. So I don't know. To have any hope of like building something, you kind of have to come in there and probably separate those out would be my best guess. But it's a difficult situation.
Yeah, no, it's not easy. You're right. Ben Thompson does a good job covering this, and he's sort of like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And the one sort of other fallout that's not getting much coverage from this with some of the Intel layoffs is they apparently had to lay off a bunch of folks who were part of, being like Linux kernel maintainers, which has the Linux community a little shook because for most people, they think, a Red Hat or Ubuntu or somebody like that's the biggest contributor. Intel forever has been the largest contributor to Linux, for obvious reasons. They want to make a great OS that runs on commodity hardware, but that may have, as big a ramifications, at least in the near term, than some of the other stuff.
Yeah, and that's something we hadn't heard. I mean, really anything. About.
Yeah,
and I'm a little surprised even in tech circles.
Yeah,
we haven't heard more about that.
Yeah. So. All right, I'm gonna kind of bounce back and forth between a few of these things. NVIDIA announced their earnings, $46.7 billion for the quarter. Of course, they hit on a whole bunch of numbers and then they were slightly off on one of the numbers. And so, Wall Street, of course, is in their normal panic stuff. But there was one number that was sort of interesting to me. They are doing now $7 billion a year or $7 billion a quarter in just networking, which is more than VMware does for all of virtualization on a quarterly basis, more than Red Hat does for the whole year for all of the open source stuff. It's more than Arista, it's more than Juniper, it's pretty much more than anybody except for Cisco. It's a juggernaut, and it's all just based on this idea that eventually the most expensive computing in the world will become widely dispersed from an AI perspective. But another good quarter for them, as we always say. Ben Thompson says that the forecasting and the numbers kind of don't mean anything because they're still supply constrained. So we have no idea what the actual demand is for these things. But all of the supply is taken up. So they tend to make their numbers. But
and did you see too? It was like, I forget, it's 20 some percent. I don't remember the exact percentage, but 20 some percent was to one customer, but they didn't disclose who it is. But I mean, it's pretty obvious.
I mean, they're in the exact same situation, sort of that Intel was. I mean, Intel used to have what they called like the Magnificent Seven, which was the big cloud providers at the time. I mean, they have the Magnificent Five or whatever it is.
Right.
And I suspect that 20% was just one of them, kind of trying to buy ahead of the other ones for this quarter, and then they'll buy ahead of the next ones for the next quarter. So, there was. I do want to. I lumped things into all sorts of categories this year instead of going through them. Last month we did Aaron had a list of things that were dead. I want to do that again for this for this one. AWS's CEO says it is dumb to fire junior engineers because of AI. VCs think software isn't dead because of AI. And I know, Brandon, you covered that over on Software Defined Talk. And there was also somebody had written a eulogy for the current AI cycle. So we are definitely in every single week is essentially the Gartner hype cycle of trough of disillusionment and peak of inflation. Like it is a yo-yo every single day as to what's dead, what's not dead. How in the world are you guys keeping up with just like the every day is highs and lows and nothing in between?
Well, I think, the one thing I can think about is just sort of like seeing what actually ships and what is actually new. It's like, follow the money, use the product, right? I think that's sort of like somebody said that once. And it's sort of like, so we saw OpenAI release its latest model. Generally speaking, it seems like it's a little bit better, but it's not any giant leap. So I think that's a little bit of, if you will, the case for like, well, maybe we have reached the peak of inflated expectations, or at least, at least we're like taking a pause. Maybe it'll have to come from something else. So that I think is actually tangible. I do think, and I actually thought the AWS CEO, I think, just people kind of like resetting and kind of being more reasonable about all this. Like if you read that whole quote from him, it's like, he just says it's dumb because we have to like teach people how to build software, because in 10 years, right, these will be the people that are, running the company. And it's like, it's super obvious and it's not controversial, but it's glad to see like there is somebody at the top that's like calm, rational about this. Right. And then the kind of thing I've been thinking a lot about too is sort of like everyone wants to thinks about, I think LLMs as sort of replacing workflows to like make, the classic quote unquote, make a reservation or, book your flights and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like that's just us applying the same boring problems we've been trying to solve for 20 years to like something that's not deterministic, probably not the right solution for a lot of this stuff, but it doesn't mean that there isn't lots of cool things that will come out of it. So I like it. I would almost call it, maybe it's not so much a trough of disillusionment. It's sort of like a little bit just practical common sense. It's like, I almost want to insert another level. Like we're introducing a little practical common sense, which is good. I think this is healthy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I like the common sense approach to all of this for sure, because I mean, here's the thing. So I was listening to I think it was Latent Space podcast, and the ChatGPT folks were on that. It was a couple weeks ago now. It wasn't the most recent version, but they were talking about GPT-5. And the thing I noticed about it a little bit like, and a lot of people caught on, they were like, oh, to your point, Brandon, the model's maybe not as good or not, it's not as good, but it's not an exponential leap anymore. And then they spent a bunch of time talking about, well, it's more like the model picker behind it of like, hey, sometimes it's using small and sometimes it's using, the reasoning model. And it's basically routing decisions behind the scenes. And this whole concept of like, it's not so much about the LLM anymore. It's about the next level of like, hey, now we need to route them and we need to be efficient. We don't always need the smartest model that's out there. And I kind of stepped back for a second. I was like, oh, that's super interesting for me because it signals a bit of a shift of like, yeah, the models aren't exponentially better anymore, at least not right now. And so now you're starting to have efficiencies and you're starting to see like a more practical side of all of this. And so it was also interesting to see the GPT-5, like that's why people were crapping on it sometimes of like, oh, this, like I did this and it was really bad and I did this and it was really good. It's like, well, because the router sent you to a different model. I mean, you don't necessarily know which model you're getting anymore. And is that a solved problem? No. Right. But it's starting to come out. So that was my thoughts on all that.
I heard a bunch of that stuff, and I heard part of people sort of guessing it. Well, that's going to allow them to, have the ability to have like the super intelligent layer, the primo thing for those, and then they're going to like, they're going to be able to go, oh, this isn't like a super high end question. I can route it to the model that now lets you serve ads. Right. So that was that sort of thing.
Yes.
Which I mean, ultimately, again, this is, we go back to this thing of like, there's no way in the world that an OpenAI survives given all the money they've taken on if they're just hoping everybody's going to give them $20 a month. Right. They're at, a percentage of people are paying them and whatever it is. And it is interesting that on one hand, they're trying to get to a point where they go, well, you shouldn't have to worry about the model so much, and you may not always need the smartest one. And on the flip side, like during the NVIDIA analyst call, Jensen is like, everybody is always going to want the smartest one because they're going to recognize that the smartest one gives me the best answers and all this stuff. And it really feels like nobody in this whole equation it's like they've completely forgotten the history and the economics of how technology has worked, in which it's like at some point you have to commoditize the crap out of something below you, and you have to be able to figure out a way to bring the overall cost of the thing down. And the guy who's making the most money out of it is like, I'm going to bang the drum as long as I can that you have to have the fastest models on the biggest chips all the time. And everybody else is like, I can't do that. And oh, by the way, you guys now have this weird addiction to like the old personality of an old model. And they're like, I can't afford to be, I can't imagine OpenAI is like, I can't afford to maintain 5 models, right. A, because of engineering talent, because I'm paying them all like NBA players now, but B, those old models chew up GPUs that I can't power. I don't have space for. Like right now, the economics of it feel like there are times when I listen to, I read through the Ed Zitron stuff, and I'm like, God, for as angry as he is, and you kind of want to, go, but like he's completely right that there's nothing about the economics of this that make any sense whatsoever. And we're still, a year ago we were like, hey, what are the use cases? And we were like, well, there's chatbots, there's coding assistants, and there's like, some sort of document summary thing. We still don't have a Netflix of AI use cases. Like there's nobody, there's no Netflix walking out on the AWS stage going, we're awesome at this stuff. And we still don't have anybody who's like, we used agents, and this was an old process that had 300 people, and now it has 15 agents. And like, this is like, there's no Netflix of that either. So like in terms of some of this, like it's not a like sort of malaise of it, but every time you step back from it and you just go like, oh, let me look at some of the numbers, you're like, this stuff makes no sense whatsoever. Like maybe even more than some of the dumb internet stuff. So
to that end, though, I think we give the audience something like, it's like a checkpoint we can come in on and be like, okay, the next obvious thing, the most obvious thing that OpenAI can do is to introduce some type of advertising model into their system, right? And basically, so they've hired the former CEO of Instacart, of course, grocery delivery, but they really make most of their money on ads, right? So I think it's, this is not like too controversial to take. I think she was brought in to build the products to make money, right? And I think her first thing has to be like, okay, I'm designing the ad-based product, Google-ish kind of thing, whatever that's going to look like exactly. So I think until like that's the next thing to launch. Okay, it's like when they finally launch that, okay, then it's back to your point here, Brian. It's like, okay, if NVIDIA is making $46 billion a quarter, well, can OpenAI start to make something that looks like a Google search margin, right? Because then, okay, if that actually happens, we'd be like, solid business. We can see what they're doing. Or when they announce it, and of course, like huge, I understand, very risky because like insert the whole Silicon Valley reference. It's like, no, you can't make money. If you make money, it tells people like the dream is over, right? So there is this thing. It's like, well, if it doesn't work, it's going to be like, Ed Zitron's going to like write 40,000 words in a newsletter talking about how he was right. And so I think that's a good signpost for us to be like, when did they do it? And does that make money? And if so, we could say that would be your Netflix, right? Here's a business that's making money. And then the other thing I think would be like, well, we're seeing maybe the limits, or we're finding the limits of this text-based world. Maybe the next frontier is images and video, which is sort of still kind of new. I mean, you can do some stuff, but maybe that's like, it's sort of like the old internet. It's like first we had blogs and text, and then we had images. So that's like your Instagram. And then we had YouTube, and now we've got video streaming. So I don't know, like maybe the next use cases are, outside of this modality. And like we're on the cusp of that horizon. We just don't see what it is at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. The tricky thing. And again, I just, dumbfounded into all these road trips. I've been listening to old acquired image, episodes and, how Google made money and all these sort of things. Like, like in the Google case, when they first, kind of built their business and built their business model, like multiple companies had already figured out sort of the advertising thing, but it wasn't super profitable. But they had figured out like, okay, here's the tech to put ads, it was banner ads, and it was, not terribly targeted and so on and so forth. But like, Yahoo was doing it, and all these portals were doing it. So like there was already a first generation of people kind of doing it, making mistakes. Like we haven't even begun to see, I mean, I guess we sort of do because Google does ads and they use AI to do it, but like there is nobody doing ads within an AI context yet at this point to the point where even, an open AI can be like, okay, what did they get wrong? Or like, what did they make a mistake on? And I do,
I think it's easy though. I would go back to like Wirecutter. If you guys ever use that site, the review site, it's gone through different, iterations, but like to me, that's the obvious thing. It's like, I do this kind of stuff all the time. Like what TV should I buy? What's the next? And it's like to me, it's like, give me the article, the pros and cons, and then insert the affiliate link, right there. And it's like, just that, like, think how many millions of people are like, what is the best, whatever, right? It's like, okay, just figure that out. Like, if you just figure that out, because that's what I want. I don't want, think about what I do today. Like, maybe you get some recommendations. Then you go to the Amazon, then you search through the 8,000 comments, most of which are garbage, looking for the one thing, and then maybe you buy. So somebody just doing, so something as simple as that, I think sits out. Now, maybe, I don't know, is that worth $5 trillion? I have no problem. Probably not. Maybe not. But like, there's a business there, right? And I think I think the Acquired episode is a good episode to listen to, because if you go back and like hear them, it's like Google sort of like never wanted to do ads. They only did the ads. Like the ideas were like given to them a million times. Yeah. But like literally kicking and screaming, they're like, okay, we'll do the ads. I mean, almost begrudgingly, right? It's like, do we have to be a $5 trillion or $3 trillion company? And they finally did it after only doing everything possible not to do it. And I think that's what OpenAI is at. Like, no, we're definitely not going to do this. Not until every possible idea is exhausted will they do it. And then we're going to know.
Yeah. Yeah. I do want to come back to VMware. VMware held their, what do they call it now? Explore. It used to be called VMworld. Hock Tan made an interesting comment in the keynote. It's interesting. They don't publish the keynote, which is kind of weird. But it's, they don't publish the keynote anyways, so you have people that were talking about it. Hock Tan wants it to be day one again for private cloud. I appreciate the hell out of that. It is, folks, August 29th, week of August 29th, it is now day one for private cloud, according to VMware. He wants you to bring everything back to the private cloud. It's going to be cheaper, more automated, more integrated. Thoughts on that approach? It's a bold approach 15 years into the public cloud that it's now day one for private cloud.
Well, I mean, so now it's day one for private cloud, and it's still the first inning for public cloud. So
that's right.
I mean, it's early days.
This might be the perfect time to start a cloud podcast, Aaron. We should consider.
That's right. I mean, it's limitless horizons.
That's right.
Well, I do think there is kind of some interesting things. Like it's like at one point when it was back VMware World, right? That was like, I don't know, out of 10. It was like the conference. I mean, it took over downtown San Francisco. Like, I mean, I don't know, 30, 40,000 people, right? And I was some people at lunch and they were saying like, there was only like a few thousand people there this year.
Yeah. Like 3,000. Yeah.
And then to your point, like the keynote's not streamed. Like, I don't think any of us watched it. Like we watched, and we get paid kind of to watch all this stuff. Sure. And the announcements, like, it's like, we got Istio, we're doing an S3 API. I mean, just like, pretty boring stuff. I'm not saying it's not important, but it wasn't like nothing was. And then of course the message was like, and of course you mentioned earlier in the show, it's like, well, it turns out it's making twice as much money. And it's like, I mean, to me, it's like, I mean, VMware's not going anywhere. I mean, there's plenty of on-premise stuff. It's never going anywhere. This is back to the running joke of the first inning with, AWS always. But it's like, this is going to be there. They're like, we're just going to make tons of money. We're announcing some sustaining features. Everything's good. Let's all go. You know what? We've done enough work. Let's all go to the party and we'll see you next year. And it's just like, it's a boring, very profitable business that's just delivering exactly what the customers want. Yeah. Other than the price increase. Right. Obviously, people are mad about that, but everything else are like, great. Pretty much, I could do everything I wanted on premise. Thank you.
I like that he just basically sort of, he was like, VMware used to step up here and tell you they were doing all sorts of new stuff. Not doing that anymore. No more shiny objects on stage. I think he basically said like something like, we are a serious business. we're not here to talk about all that shiny stuff. And it was just like, all right, man, you're not messing around.
Well, it's even kind of funny. Like, it's almost like the one thing that was, I think, if you're a VMware customer, they're like, okay, we'll give you the AI stuff and we'll just include it in what you're paying for. You don't have to pay extra.
That's
all right. I gave you what you want. Let me run through these other announcements. Let's get to the bar. Like, that was it. I mean, that was the entire, that was my entire summary of all of it. I mean, it was just like, okay, sounds good. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Here's what I picture happening. Like, then this is, gosh, how long has that been around now? 15 years, 20 years?
Yeah. I mean,
somewhere like that. Like, I remember, so I'm going to really date myself. When I started at IBM out of college, I had to go through orientation, and they flew us up to New York, up to Poughkeepsie, to the headquarters. And we were in this room with all the IBM new people. And then there was a bunch of other folks there, and it was this whole like Z series, which was the mainframe. And they were like, hey, if you're working on Z series, stand up. And all these people stood up, and they're like, if you're if you're eligible to retire in the next 5 years, sit down. And almost everyone sat down. And it was like, okay, we need to hire new people to replace the mainframe people. Like, we might very well have that with the VMware crowd at some point of like, there's people that have been going to VMware, VMware Explorer for 30, 40 years. They're getting ready to retire. Then there's going to be like the college graduate program. I'll pay you a ton of money to go work on VMware because, no one's doing it anymore. Like, I mean, that's where we're at.
Somebody think about it this way. Like, there was a time when Nutanix, Aaron, I don't know if you were working there or not at the time, but like Nutanix went and hired up all the like vExperts and like real high end people.
That was,
and they were trying to sort of be the, hey, we're going to be kind of like VMware, but it's not VMware. I mean, if you were smart, if you were a systems integrator, you would go out and hoard every single one of those people. You would find every like real vExpert, every real Chad's Armored person, because you're like, yeah, they're making twice as much money. People aren't necessarily improving their skills. They're going to need people to do it. Like, they ought to be hoarding those people, right? They ought to be like, we are absolutely the best, and we have all the smartest people. We will maintain your systems, even if they're old systems, because those guys used to work on it when it was, VMware 4 or VMware 5 or whatever. Like, I would be doing that like crazy right now, is going and finding because all those folks don't want to learn Kubernetes. They don't want to learn Linux. They don't want to learn cloud. They're like, I wish I was doing the same thing. That would be a very smart business model to sort of be like,
well, I think you have that, and also
VMware integrator.
I was going to say, like, I think there's some kind of brilliance inside of Broadcom. I think, maybe they figured it out, or they kind of executed on the acquisition that a lot of people miss. It's not so much even the people. Like, people, you can eventually find people to move and learn new things. But if you think about, okay, what is a VMware? It runs VMs. Okay, what are the VMs? They run workloads. What's inside the workflows?
They don't care.
Basically, the business, the workflows that ultimately run the business. And if it was a commodity VM, it has already been migrated. If it could have easily been moved to a container or easily been moved to cloud and been run cheaper, like, it's been done, right? This is the whole thing. This is the thing when I again get frustrated with the cloud providers a little bit, where it's like, we're in the first innings. It's like, no. Like, you've taken the simple stuff, the stuff that everyone can do. That is mostly relatively done, right? I mean, it's not that hard. Everything else is like, there is a reason this VM is going to live on, because it represents some type of thing that's very hard for the business. Even if we think outside as technologists, we could break that down. The business ultimately, and this is kind of back to the mainframe comment, it's like, why in the United States does it still take 3 days to clear a check, right? If we think about ACH and the check deposit process, like, there is so much code inside that mainframe that we don't really understand and that no one really wants to move over. It's not like we don't have smart people thinking about it. So I think that's kind of like, that to me is like, when you get to the essence of it, that's what is inside these VMs. And that's why you can go out and announce just a price increase and like some minor release, and people will be like, well, we're going to stay with it, because it's just not easy to get off that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking about this, and I feel like the analogy, and I hate to step on Cote's land, because I know he's trying to corner the market on what inning we're in. But the analogy I think of is you're talking about, like, hey, you've gotten all the low hanging fruit. I feel like we're basically moving into the 6th inning of a Red Sox versus Yankees playoff game, and it's now going to take. The first 6 innings took an hour and a half, but the next 3 innings of pitching changes, of batting changes, of people stepping out of take like 4 hours and go into the middle. Like, I think we are into the late innings, but these late innings are going to take forever. like because they're super hard and they're complicated and every mistake is like compounded. And so that's my new analogy. I think we're actually in the sixth inning of cloud. It's just people think all the innings are equal, and they are by no means equal. We're going to have 12 pitching changes between now and then.
Yeah, it's the last 2 minutes of the college basketball games too.
That's right. That's right. That's right. If you need to order a pizza, it'll show up before the game's over. Brandon, let's talk about this month in coding assistance. What happened over at Cognition? Things didn't go good, and they took a bunch of money. Like it feels like a rotating circus over there.
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, I think we'd ask that question every day. Well, this was they bought the Windsurf, the remains of Windsurf. And then everyone was like, "Oh, thank goodness! Everyone, all the employees they found a home. Everything will be good for them." And then the Cognition founder came out and said, "Everybody should probably take this buyout. If not, you need to work 80 hours a week, and and if you don't work 80 hours a week, you're probably not going to make it here." And so, and then they took a whole bunch of new money. So I think it just comes down to I think they're making their big push as the next great coding assistant. I don't know. I try them all. Right now, I'm kind of happy with Cloud Code and Cursor. Those are my favorites. So I think they have quite the uphill battle, but they seem like they're going to try to do it. And there was a funny, I don't know if it was a tweet or something like that, just showed up in the Software Defined Talk Slack. Someone said the one thing AI has done that nothing else could do is it's convinced developers to pay for things. And I thought that was true. I was like, there you have it. There's a lot of value in paying for these coding assistants, and I wish them well. I wish the Cognition people well. I don't think I would, but if I had to bet, I'd be like, I don't think you're going to be around that long. It's like you're going to have to do something great to keep pace, but time will tell.
Yeah. Here's my other business model idea. I wonder. So basically what happened was, Windsurf. The in-demand people went over to Google, and then Google basically, I think basically gave Cognition a bunch of money to be the people that were going to fire the rest of the Windsurf team.
Right. Basically let them vest them out or pay them severance.
Right. Yep. And I'm sure somewhere in there, so let's say they gave them 150 million or 200 million or something like that. I'm sure Cognition was like, well, I feel like there's going to be some effort here. So what's my cut of this? What's my vig for taking, maybe they took 10% or 20%, kept that for themselves, used the rest for the buyout. I'm wondering if there's a market to become the Cognition of just these acquisitions, right? You're just essentially a holding company, and you get the float on whatever that. So you hold 3% aside for yourself. You do the layoffs. You basically bring in, whatever, Clooney, in that movie Up in the Air. Mm-hmm. You fire people via Zoom. And you keep 3% of whatever the thing is for this thing. Because I got to imagine there's going to be a whole bunch of these, right? There
already have been. I think you're right. I mean, there's a private equity. I think Character AI comes to mind. Yeah. There's been several. So and also too, you can offer a service to the venture capitalists. Listen, you don't want this stuck on your books on this cap table. It's give it to us. We'll help you write it down. We'll make sure you get a little money back. We'll clean it up for you, and we'll just take whatever's left. We'll take a little off the top. I mean, Brian, that's a very dark thought, but I like where you're.
But I love it. This might be the ultimate. I mean, I know Software Defined Talk Consulting has been looking for business models. This might be something you guys could do, and you guys are in multiple countries. You could launder it around. People wouldn't even get picked up by the U.S. press if it went through. That's Australia.
True. We'll have to look into. We'll have to. I guess we'll have to base it in Ireland, because all financial companies in Ireland. So we'll figure it out. We'll have to get on that.
Yeah. In this week in funding, Anthropic apparently is going to try and raise another $10 billion. I thought they were taking $10 billion last month too. Is this another $10 billion? Is this an extension of their other 10? How do you keep up with the multiple billions that these guys seem to take? Are they just stockpiling it because they think at some point, if something crashes, they're going to be like, all right, I didn't want to get caught holding the bag, right? I'm just going to stockpile somebody else's cash.
I don't know. I think they're pretty much having to pay for the compute and all that. I mean, I think, certainly OpenAI is in the worst or best situation, right? They have the most users. So I think those bills come in every month, no matter what, right? Someone's got to pay for all of that. So I don't think there's any hoarding going on, or there's probably very little. And I think you put it in here. The funniest thing here is the Anthropic CEO is always the one making the claims about we're going to live forever and all stuff like this. But they interviewed him about writing, and he's like, it just can't quite write like me yet. I got to write the blog myself. I really want to do. I was like, I just thought that in myself is that is what AI is. It's no. Everything else is going to be changed, but it can't quite get the tone that I want to write my blogs in. I was like, all right, you and everybody else, everyone has this feeling. It's like, no, you're probably just as replaceable as everyone else. Sorry, man. Your writing is fine, but it's not that great. So that's the funniest thing I've seen.
Yeah.
The biggest thing I've seen with all of this is, I mean, there's no way we're definitely going to know, but yeah, to your point, Brandon, burn rate of existing things, but also to the build outs of future things, right? Like you're seeing more and more, hey, we're going to go build, the next big data center, somewhere in the world, and we're going to build this and we're going to build this. And all of these data centers are the next biggest data center that's ever been built. And you can't even keep up with the demands of power and space and cooling at this point. And so I think it's like keeping the lights on, but also trying to build for the growth all at the same time. I mean, it's just getting, to your point though, Brian, from what you were saying earlier, like when and where does it make, like, it just doesn't make sense anymore. And yeah, if your burn rate is like, hey, I just raised 10 million or 10 billion last month and I need another 10 billion this month, like what changed or what happened?
Well, I think,
well, it's crazy to me.
For OpenAI and Anthropic, it's like they're on the treadmill. Like, what do you do? Right? It's like you either raise or you die, right? There is like, you're either going to be worth $1 trillion, you're going to be worth nothing. Because all these other competitors, Google, Facebook, they kind of have unlimited money with their other businesses. They can go forever. Whereas, OpenAI, I mean, Google's going to make another, $20 billion next quarter, no matter what. So they have plenty of money. So every quarter, they got to figure that out. And so it's probably exciting. It's got to be pretty stressful, right? Because you're either going to be a hero or you're going to have lost like the biggest opportunity of all time. I don't think there's any middle ground.
It makes WeWork look like a small loss.
That's a good analogy. That's a very good analogy.
Yeah, we need some documentaries on the biz dev people for OpenAI. Just what is their life like? Day in the life, week in the life of the biz dev guy. For OpenAI. How many calls has he taken? Where is he? What late night things is he doing with sovereign wealth funds and all kinds of stuff like that? All right, last topic I want to hit on before we wrap up. Did you guys realize that Larry Ellison is now back to being the second richest person in the world?
I did, only because he helped his son buy that Paramount Plus, and I was like, "Oh, what's going on here?" And I guess I was still surprised how much of Oracle he owns. He still owns quite a significant chunk. So I guess if you own something long enough and you don't sell it off, you're going to get even richer, I guess is the way to think of that. Yeah,
apparently Oracle is like double in the last, 6 months or so, stock price, but like they are kind of quietly doing very, very well in the AI compute market, whether it's like, building out for OpenAI and a bunch of stuff. So they feel like, Aaron, I think between that and like Meta just took a 10 billion, took on a big $10 billion with Google Cloud, like your predictions again of one of the horses in the back of the race starting to come forward. Things might be very close as we get into the next couple of years in terms of revenue across the cloud providers.
We're in the seventh inning of. No, just kidding.
I feel like we may have to start talking about Oracle Cloud for like the first time in 10, 12, 15 years on this show.
I feel like somebody needs to go in there and like write more about it, because I'm like, I see the numbers. I'm like what are they doing? Like, I don't know. I don't want to say, it just feels like a little bit impenetrable. Like you don't see customers like case studies as much. It's just like, I see numbers, but I don't see the corresponding like market activity. Maybe it's like the circles I travel in don't include Oracle, but I don't know. I want to know more. I want someone to get in there.
Yeah, I don't feel like I could point to the person who's like, they cover it really well. Like I every other thing that goes on, you go like, oh yeah, it's Tom over at whatever, it's Mary over at whatever. Like Oracle is so tight-lipped about it, and they're so protective of like anything that goes out there. Yeah, you're right. It feels like a complete black box, and then their numbers come out, and you're like, that can't all just be raising the price of Oracle database, can it? It can't all. I mean, like, it's something. But yeah, I'll leave it with that. Complete unknown of how Larry has gotten so rich, and how Oracle is now doing. What made their price double in the last 6 months?
It's OCI building out infrastructure for ByteDance.
I mean, it could be. It very well could be.
That's
I would believe it. If you came out and said that, I'd be like, yep, I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know that for a fact, but
That would be like a good, like,
I've heard
I don't know if
many
it's
times
conspiracy or prediction. It's like they're doing that, and then like in a few months there'll be some political announcement, and now TikTok is owned by Oracle. I'm like, oh, now we get it.
Yeah.
Now we understand.
That wouldn't surprise me if like tomorrow somebody announced that. So, all right, guys. Last thing. Any predictions for this week's sort of week 1 football? It sort of started, but not really. And by the time people listen to this, the games will be over. But any predictions? Ohio State, Texas, or LSU, Clemson, or just any week 1 predictions for college football?
Let's see. Well, I'll just make a very boring prediction that Arch Manning is just a normal human being. He's just a normal quarterback, and he has a normal game. He is not a religious figure. He's not a deity that was bestowed upon this earth to create the greatest football player of all time. He's just a regular, normal college quarterback that will probably have a good game, but not great. And then everyone will be like, I can't believe he just had a good game. I thought he was the second coming. So there you go. Maybe that's the way to say it. We've reached the stage of peak expectations for Arch Manning, and it will only go down from this moment for him, sadly.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to end it, because I would guess maybe 1% of our audience has any idea who Arch Manning is, other than us and a few others. So let's wrap it up there, guys. Good job covering AI and cloud trends for August of 2025, and we will be back again next month.
Thank you for listening to The Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.